February 7th, 2023. A simple 11-second long video was made by one Alexei Gerasimov, posted onto the YouTube channel known as DaFaqBoom. This video would go on to garner 202 million views on YouTube alone by September 3rd of 2024. This video would go on to creating one of the largest series on YouTube. With a reminder that this bit is still being written on September 3rd of 2024, the series has 77 episodes out, and while each episode is still fairly short, that hasn't stopped a massive wave of attention on each and every single episode, with the second part of episode 77 getting 13 million views only 3 days after it first released. You know this series. Whether you wanted to or not, you've heard the name, you've seen that face, you have witnessed Skibidi Toilet. To cut back from the dramatics a bit, originally this video, like my Michael Bay and Tubi video, was going to be about me commentating on how silly a series Skibidi Toilet is. Maybe make fun of bits and pieces of it, go, why are they turning this into a Hollywood film? Maybe I'd find a positive aspect or two, because who likes being negative all the time, you know? And then I'd make like a Team Fortress 2 joke and call it a day. Y'all, this is not gonna be that video. Let me state this video's mission statement loud and clear right here at the start. Skibidi Toilet is a genuinely great series that deserves your time and attention. I am no longer here to bash Skibidi Toilet. Like Paul the Apostle, I have seen the light, and I intend on doing my best to spread the good word of Skibidi Toilet. So, Skibidi Toilet is something that can be condensed into essentially arcs. There's the Skibidi setup, then there's the Resistance setup, then we've got the Full War arc, and lately it seems a new arc has started up, the Astral arc. In order for me to prove my point, I'm going to talk about each arc, both what happens and the qualities within it, and maybe you'll see just how cool this series is. Starting with, of course, the Skibidi setup, and that begins with, of course, Skibidi Toilet 1. In the beginning, there was light, and also this little version of the Half-Life character G-Man walking away from the toilet. I would suggest that maybe he used the toilet, but it is soon revealed that the toilet is in fact a Skibidi toilet, perhaps even the first ever Skibidi toilet. And beyond the moral implications of taking a huge deuce into a Skibidi toilet, you'd have to have scaled the Skibidi toilet, and that seems like too much work for just going to the bathroom. Perhaps with time, the nature of this video will become clear. Or maybe not. After all, the first few Skibidi toilets have tons of oddball characters with no real rhyme or reason. Like in the second Skibidi toilet, there's a T-posing genie from Aladdin for no discernible reason. Even though this will kinda go against later established Skibidi toilet lore, I kind of like to imagine these little oddballs as like trickster gods. Maybe did a little something trickstery and helped the Skibidi toilets with that initial boost they needed to start enacting their plans. Specifically, the little G-Man being an assistant of the Skibidi toilets does make some sense, as you will soon see. The rest of the Skibidi setup arc is quite simple, as the title suggests. It's all about figuring out the powers and goals of the Skibidi toilets. The Skibidi toilets can do just about everything. Fly, shoot lasers out of their eyes, extend their necks an incredible length. They can move somehow. They can also mind control people, specifically people sitting on toilets, which is a shockingly common occurrence in the world of Skibidi Toilet, which according to the description of some of the videos, apparently it all takes place in Ohio, though some of the areas don't look particularly Ohioan, so I guess Ohio is just the name for the Skibidi Toilet Earth. As for the actual quality of the arc, it's fine. It's easily the most memey that the series gets. Not only is there the weird little oddball characters, but it's also pretty formulaic. The Skibidi Toilets show up, sing their Skibidi Toilet song, then they kill the POV character. It's, riveting. I should explain the Skibidi Toilet song real quick. In real life, it's a remix created by Paris Bryan of the song Dom Dom Yes Yes by Bizer King. It's a catchy little tune, though it's repeated constantly during the first half of the series. During the future arcs, it gets much better, but if you binge Skibidi Toilet like I did, you'll get a bit tired of it, simply due to how consistently it's used. It's used so often because in the Skibidi Toilet universe, the song is, for the most part, the main way the Skibidi Toilets communicate. This is also the shortest of the Skibidi Toilet arcs, because as soon as Skibidi Toilet 8 happens, we start seeing our first signs of the Skibidi Toilet resistance. This does make sense since Alexei did confirm in an interview with Forbes that there wasn't exactly a plan until Skibidi Toilet 7, so until then he was just kind of making memes. However, the time for memes is over. Now it's time for a brief side tangent about why Skibidi Toilet, the series, looks like that. See, way back in my day, before Valve was just the people who work hard at keeping Steam as mediocre as possible, they used to make video games. This was written before I figured out that Deadlock existed. Most of these old Valve games were made in an engine called Source, and then they were like, wouldn't it be cool if we gave people the means to make their own animations in Source and called it Source Filmmaker? And so they, did that. There's really nothing quite like Source in terms of visuals. I mean, just look at it. Personally, as someone who experienced a lot of Valve stuff as a youngling, the stuff's kinda nostalgic. But it works well with Skibidi Toilet specifically because it's in that perfect little area of the uncanny valley where it's kinda eerie, especially the movements of these Skibidi Toilets. Necks that stretch unnaturally long, smiles that could only be done by the hands of an animator. It's no wonder why this was so attention-grabbing. After all, Source Filmmaker is still being used today, sure, but it's not a common sight. Speaking of, it feels apt to talk about the Skibidi Toilet design itself before we get into the rest of the plot synopsis. The actual design has got to be probably the most important thing about why the series initially skyrocketed, to the point where it was parodied on the Stephen Colbert Show. Wait, what the fuck? Anyway, the design is simple, just a toilet and a head, but it's also such an eye-catching and distinct thing. Even if you're a grumpy boomer, if you see a Skibidi Toilet, your first reaction is going to be to keep your eye on it for at least a few moments longer, and that's a sign of a good design. With that tangent out of the way, I gotta talk about the people in the Skibidi universe outside of the actual Skibidi Toilets, as briefly seen in the Skibidi setup arc. There are humans, though honestly I don't think you see them much at all during the Resistance setup arc. The most often type of guy you see is the camera guy, which are discernible by the fact that they have cameras for heads and are guys. And there is also the camera titan, who's, for all intents and purposes, a kaiju who can absolutely demolish waves upon waves of Skibidi Toilets. The camera guys in general have this habit of doing a thumbs up at really any point they can find a good excuse to do so. This trait also extends over to the camera titan, so there's times where sometimes he beats down on an especially tough Skibidi Toilet, and then he'll go to one of the normal cameramen and give them a little thumbs up. It has such gentle giant vibes. We stand the camera titan in this household. Another cool detail is that for most of the series, the POV character is a camera guy. It does switch between camera guys, sometimes even in the middle of an episode, which makes a lot of sense, cause cameras. But having everything in first person gives the series a very distinct visual style. The story also does a good job at setting up the camera guys as likable, mostly because before they're properly introduced, we're already shown that the Skibidi Toilets are a group that need to be stopped, and the camera guys are trying their best at doing just that. And again, it's all in first person, which gives each cameraman we see through a little personal touch, which I quite like. Though early on, their victories are so few and far between. Even the Titan camera, as powerful as they are, they can only do so much. There's this real powerful Skibidi Toilet. He's got the head of the G-Man, which maybe ties him into the G-Man we saw at the start of the series, but who knows. Anyway, he's called the G-Toilet, and during a fight with the Camera Titan, he technically wins. I mean, the Camera Titan is still able to get away, but if the Camera Titan can't defeat the G-Toilet, then who can? Later, we see another brutal clash between the cameramen and Skibidi Toilets happen on the streets of Ohio, but just in the nick of time, there's this new group of men who appear, this time with speakers on their heads instead of cameras. The speaker guys help defeat the Skibidi Toilets in that area. As they play their backing theme, Everyone Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. The speaker guys work really similar to the camera guys, but they have the ability to blast Skibidi Toilets with sound. They also have their own Titan, the Speaker Titan. And who knows, maybe a team up between the two Titans is exactly what's needed to defeat the G-Toilet. However, after a bout of Skibidi Toilets facing loss after loss against the united front of camera and speaker guys, this one Skibidi Toilet, known as the Chief Dr. Skibidi Toilet, created these tiny Skibidi Toilets that can crawl inside their opponents and then take over their mind. I'm sure the fandom has a more official term for this, but I've grown quite fond of calling it the Skibidification process, so we're sticking with that. Anyway, while the Resistance does eventually develop a special gun that reverses the Skibidification process, and it does work for most Resistance members, unfortunately, the Speaker Titan fell victim to the skibidification process, and the de-skibidification gun doesn't work. There's this really good scene of after the de-skibidification gun is developed, and there's this moment where the devs of the weapon are found by both the G Toilet and the Speaker Titan, and while they do try shooting the Speaker Titan, it's, as stated earlier, to no avail. The gun gets thrown to the camera guy closest to the exit, and all he can do is run as everyone he was just working with 5 seconds ago gets blasted. It's a good scene because it reminds you of just how underdog the Resistance is against the evil Skibidi Toilets. It's the main reason the Resistance is so likable. They do have their more human moments, they dance, they check up on one another, but it's that sense that they're going against impossible odds that really make you just want to see them win. But I mean, we still got so much Skibidi Toilet left, so that's gonna be a minute. But you know, still, now that the Speaker Titan is evil, things are especially dour for the Resistance. They need a miracle. They need like a whole third faction to help. Luckily, there's a whole new third faction, the TV guys. These guys are cool because they can teleport and they wear all black. They can also put little emoticons on their screen so you know what they're feeling at any given moment. Now that the TV guys have finally revealed themselves, I should probably go into the full-on war arc. However, I want to talk a little about the different variations of all the main groups. Cause while each group has their default appearance, there's also special variants. This is mainly seen in the Skibidi Toilets. If you look at the characters list on the Skibidi Toilet wiki, it's mostly just different variations of the Skibidi Toilet, though it's fun to see just how distorted and warped that original design can get, while still typically staying true to the absolute weirdness of that original design. Just now they get fun powers that give you that, man, I wonder how the good guys are gonna beat this one vibe. As for the Resistance, there is a TV Titan as well. He does the :3 smiley face on his big screen, and the first time I saw that, it genuinely made me laugh. But besides him, there's large variants of each Resistance group. I mean, not Titan large, but still. There's Striders, Scientists, Detectives, Snipers, there's Dave. There's also a few women, at least one for each Resistance type. Though the only important one is TV Woman. She's really cool. She's got retractable arm blades, her TV head can set Skibidi Toilets on fire somehow, and her head is also detachable. She's perfect. I mean, she and the rest of the TV guys perfectly show off one of the main themes of Skibidi Toilet. A lot of Skibidi Toilet's strongest beats can be found in the fact that the 3 main groups are in fact different. Not only do they have different abilities, but they communicate differently. Camera guys do hand stuff, speakers dance, and the TVs emote. They're united under the same threat, sure, but it's that threat that shows why those differences are such an important thing. Like the Daleks, they're all about destroying everything that isn't a Skibidi Toilet. And beyond that, if there's a Skibidi Toilet that acts out of line and wants to sing a different song, they get killed. And the only fate for the others is to either die or become subject to the skibidification process. It's no wonder the power of these differences between the different members of the Resistance feels so important. It's not a theme that the show focuses too hard on, admittedly, as personalities aren't exactly something consistently highlighted within Skibidi Toilet, only little glimmers here and there, which is fair, there is a war going on. But still, this theme is very much an important part of Skibidi Toilet. Oh, speaking of war, I should probably start talking about the full-on war arc. To be fair, the full-on war arc is probably the trickiest one to talk about. A lot happens, arguably too much. I think my main criticism of Skibidi Toilet is that its pacing is a little drawn out. Sometimes a good few episodes can go by without much major happening. Perhaps it's this longer than it needs to be nature that made the idea of turning Skibidi Toilet into a movie so appealing to specifically Michael Bay. The action is fun, sure, but there's times where it feels like there's an infinite amount of pieces on the board. If a Skibidi Toilet dies, so what? There's gonna be more. And while there's obviously the big players like the Titans and the G Toilet, you can kinda tell nobody's gonna die until the very end of the story. The only real major player that has died so far has been the Chief Scientist Skibidi Toilet, who was the second strongest Skibidi Toilet, right behind the G-Man. And to my point, his death was a pretty satisfying moment. There's also the issue of the Skibidi Toilet lore. While I'll get into my big theory later on, there's a lot going on I just can't extrapolate on because I have no clue. There's this guy with the same face as the one in DaFaqBoom's YouTube channel who just started randomly appearing to observe situations and teleport away. I didn't even notice him at first, as embarrassing as that is to admit. There's some stuff where I guess the rebellion members used to be human until they got like that through what looks like some weird government science project. No clue if that extends to the Titans or other variations, or why they were made in the first place. Was it to combat the Skibidi toilets? How do Skibidi toilets exist in the first place? They're made in factories and humans can also be turned into them, but how did that start? Why did that start? Frankly, chat, I just don't know. This video isn't going to turn into an explanation of Skibidi toilet lore because it just can't be, because right now it's just too confusing. However, I think Skibidi toilet's deep lore isn't something that needs to be fully understood in order to appreciate the more apparent bits of the story. Within this arc is easily my favorite fight of the whole series. It's between the Camera Titan and the Speaker Titan, who, if you don't recall from way back when, had been Skibidified by the not yet dead chief scientist Skibidi toilet. While I know that I've been kind of all over the place with the narrative, it's important to paint the picture that under the Skibidification, the Speaker Titan did so much damage to so many people. And the first person perspective really makes you feel involved in this world torn asunder. So when the Camera Titan finally has a moment to take down the Speaker Titan, and being two of the most powerful beings in this war, you just know whoever wins, whoever dies. The outcome of this battle will be greatly reflected in the outcome of the war at large. Whilst I shan't describe the battle in its entirety, it's a proper kaiju battle. The winner never felt fully determined until the end. With each punch thrown, each ability used, it's frankly rad. It all culminates in this moment where the TV woman teleports in, and in a moment where the Speaker Titan has been weakened, she begins the de-Skibidification process. And now it's at this moment where things get real intense. Mainly because my future wife is now in the battlefield, doing manual de-Skibidification on a Titan, but she pulls it off, of course she does. That's when it hits. The Speaker Titan is back, ready to rejoin the resistance. There's this dope moment where the music swells up and the two do this handshake, and it's in this specific moment where the divergence of my mental image of Skibidi Toilet really hits me. See, before I really knew Skibidi Toilet, I had just heard about it through memes, and specifically that stupid meme song that was played ad nauseum. Skibidi Toilet is so closely associated with the newest generation and how stupid and lazy they are, sitting on their iPads watching Skibidi Toilet shorts. The audacity. Oh, how the young are ruined with brains made of rot. It's not exactly an uncommon opinion. Ask any terminally online person in their early 20s and they'll probably repeat something of similar effect. Better yet, look at the comments of the first Skibidi Toilet short. Sure, the first few are a bit nonsensical, but nonsensical doesn't mean bad. It doesn't mean brain rot, it just means nonsensical. And yet this hatred persists. This hatred that for many moons I blindly believed must have been justified in some way, shape, or form. And then of course I watched it. And really? Come on y'all, this is your enemy? This is the thing that is brain rotting the youth? Kaiju battles featuring silly designs? Get a hold of yourselves, people. Sure, Skibidi Toilet isn't perfect, what is? But it sure as all be isn't bad. It just sucks to see my generation repeating the pattern of hating on the new simply due to it being new. There's a lot of problems in the world, including some actual issues with the content kids are watching nowadays. But to blame Skibidi Toilet, it's as nonsensical as early Skibidi Toilet. Look, I know, I haven't convinced all of you, but we've got one more arc left, and with it, my final gambit, to help the people of the world see the light that is Skibidi Toilet. Let's talk about the Astral arc. Admittedly, when I first saw the Astral Toilets, which are this group of extremely powerful Skibidi Toilets that want to destroy everyone, whether they be resistance or regular Skibidi Toilets, with them even taking the fight to the G-Toilet, I was really confused. It felt pretty obvious early on that the Skibidi Toilets were a metaphor for something, but for the longest time I couldn't figure out what exactly it was a metaphor for. This confusion was only extrapolated on by the existence of the Astral Toilets. If the Skibidi Toilets have been this metaphor for something bad this whole time, something bent on destroying art or media or whatever it is exactly the resistance represents, and I mean, I was pretty sure it was somewhere in that ballpark. The good guys have cameras and TVs for heads after all. It makes you wonder what the Astral Toilets could possibly be. This wondering only furthered when the regular Skibidi Toilets teamed up with the Resistance in order to fight the Astral Toilets. There's even this director cameraman with a little suicide squad of Skibidi toilets that he uses to fend off the astral toilets. However, it's these odd details that make the big picture finally click for me. Skibidi toilet is all one big metaphor for AI, meaning the Resistance is traditionally created media. Cameras held with real human hands, speakers and TVs playing the works of genuine creators. Then there's the Skibidi toilet. It's this weird little thing with many forms, but its origins are still always clear no matter how much it may try and weasel its way into real art. And most importantly, it's in an active battle with real creators. Need more proof? A few months after Skibidi Toilet 1 was made, SAG-AFTRA, which is a union for, as their site puts it, performers and media members, went on strike. While there were a good few reasons the strike happened, one of the biggies was due to fears that corporations were going to try and use AI in order to replace, well, as many people as they could. Where once there were real people sitting on toilets in a diner, now there are AI versions of them, replaced by a worse, uncaring version of themselves. That brings us back to the astral toilets, and the new alliance between the Skibidi toilets and the Resistance, which does show a more nuanced stance on AI than Skibidi Toilet did in the past 2 arcs. AI does have a place in the world, but it's at the side of creators, as little tools here and there, not as replacements. Much like this Skibidi alliance, there is work nowadays being done where AI helps, commanded by their directors in order to help out when the time is right. The astral toilets, however, that's the nightmare stuff. That's the stealing of voices to say whatever. That's the images that will always look at least a little off. That's the generative AI that unions like SAG-AFTRA need to keep vigilant about. And that's Skibidi Toilet. Its silly designs, its battles reminiscent of old kaiju movies. It's a last big hoorah of a filmmaking software that defined childhoods, defining a few more with a lesson about the importance of humanity during a time where that importance is being questioned more than ever. About how when you work with those different than you can defeat anything. Either way, Skibidi Toilet is bound to end sometime soon. Alexi already said it's been written. When it does end, I know there's going to be a plethora of thank gods and looks like humanity can finally heal and all that nonsense from people who don't know what they're talking about. However, when it ends, I know I'll earnestly watch the rest of the series. Not for YouTube, like how I was when I started, but for me, to see what happens, to watch the Titans fight, to figure out the lore, to see the TV woman again. Maybe I'll watch it too. Maybe, hopefully, you'll see Skibidi Toilet for what it is. A weird little series about a war between people with technology for heads and toilets with human heads popping out of them. And then we can talk, not about how it's destroying the youth or whatever, but about how, despite its flaws, despite how unfunny the memes criticizing it and Gen Alpha are, the fact that this weird little love letter to art exists should be, at the very least, appreciated. My name is Robin, this is Spellbound Media, and if you're not too busy subscribing to DaFaqBoom, maybe send one my way. See ya.